Hi, guys. Welcome to another episode of Modern Health with Dr. Jane. Today, I have my patient, Ali, joining me. Ali, instead of me doing an introduction, why don't you do a quick 30-second who you are, where you're from, what you do?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Allie. I'm 28. I'm from New York, but I live in Boston now. I'm a CPA, so I work in the accounting industry, mostly just tax accounting. And yeah, I think that's it.
That's you. Yeah, that's pretty much sums it up. Um, what I was talking about to you right before we came on was how grateful I am to my patients who decide to take the plunge and share their stories, because I think that nobody can tell your story better than you. Even when I share on my social media, like, this is what my patients are going through, the language that you use, the wins that you've had, the discouragements or the pitfalls, the peaks and the valley of the journey.
Yeah.
I think no one can describe that better than you. So I appreciate you for being here. And I hope that, everybody who's listening will find it really helpful. So I'd love for you to tell people why did you, what was the thing that was preventing you from feeling happy and fulfilled? Why did you find me? What were the issues you were facing?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a few things, but I mean, I struggled with weight really my whole life, just and like name a diet, I've been on it, just weight loss. And then I think until I met you, I hadn't even heard of the term weight loss resistance either. But it was kind of a combination of that, and then also just really painful periods and just some lab work that had come back not really normal, but other doctors weren't really helping me find answers at all, or they wanted to put me on medication right away without digging in deeper. And I just knew that something was wrong, and I didn't want to go on medication right away before we found out more. Um, and then just found you through social media. Uh, and I think the first post I saw of yours was the one about the just tap drinking tap water and how bad that is. And right away I was like, I'm following her. I was like,
Yeah.
that's really gross. And then I think you had messaged me, and then we just kind of went from there.
Yeah. Yeah, tell me, because I actually forgot that you had a bunch of lab work that kept showing up the same, that like it's not changing, and you've been down the rabbit hole of seeing some practitioners as well,
Yep.
right? Like, what was the missing
Yep.
piece there? Because so
Yeah.
weight loss resistance, you've tried a bunch of diet and it's nothing. The weight didn't move at all, or it would move and it would come back. Fill people in a little bit on
Yeah,
that.
it was definitely kind of, yeah, it would move and it would come back, and then I'd kind of be happy with where I was for a bit, and then I'd kind of gain again and lose again. But I think where it all sort of changed was, I think it was like right before COVID started. I just had like just a really bad period experience where I remember just, like bled through my pants. I was at work, like it was the whole thing. I had really bad cramping, and I remember coming home and just thinking like that's it. Like I need to do something about this. And so I, went to the doctor, but their only solution was birth control. So, and all of my friends have been on birth control for years, and that's like the only thing that I knew as an answer to that. So I just accepted it. And I was like, great, going on birth control. And even that, like, probably should have known there was a problem, because you have to go through two or three different ones before you even find one that kind of works. And then, they always say like, oh, you sometimes you gain like 5 to 10 pounds when you're on the pill, like not a big deal, whatever. So that had happened, but then it just kind of kept creeping up. And then I was like, okay, well, let me, go back to the dieting that I know, and like let me try to lose weight. But then anything that I knew from before that maybe used to work just wasn't working anymore. And that's when I knew I was like something is wrong. So I went to a doctor just to get like basic blood work done. I said, I'm having trouble losing weight. And right off the bat, I think she just did like a couple labs, but it was mostly the hemoglobin A1C, like the blood sugar and all of that came off not great, like showing pre-diabetes. And I remember her calling me and just being like, you have to go on metformin right away. Like you have to go on this drug, and like that's your only option. And I just like panicked because I was like, well, what do you mean? Like I I that's like really scary to hear. And then I didn't really want to take that as an answer, because when I had said, do I have to be on that? Like, how long do I have to be on that? And she said forever. Like there's no, you can't come off of it. So I was like, no, like not trying that yet.
Mm.
And then I had even seen, so then I went to a different doctor and it was the same story with her. I also remember telling her, like I always tell people this because I just feel like this is a ridiculous example of like the kind of answers that I got. Um, like when I said I was having trouble losing weight, she was like, "Oh, well, you're an accountant, you're not a farmer, so maybe don't eat breakfast or something." Like I think I told you that before. And I'm just like, "What?"
You haven't. That's amazing.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
that's
And
I'll put that in my repertoire of
yeah,
things doctors say, you
it's
know,
like,
like
well, maybe just try not eating breakfast. And just like, what? And what does my profession have to do with eating breakfast? So like right away, I'm just like, I'm not getting anywhere with this. And I remember she ran labs too, and like she had the same response about going on metformin. And then I asked to see an endocrinologist, and she was like, "Well, we can test some cortisol things, but like I won't test anything else." And I was like, "Well, what about hormones? Like, you're a hormone doctor. Like, can we see like, is anything happening?" And she's just like, "No, like, there's no reason." And so I mean, I got so frustrated with that. And all this time, I'm gaining weight even though I'm thinking I'm doing things that like you shouldn't be gaining weight doing these things.
yeah,
Um, so that was just frustrating too because it's like you're trying to solve the problem and it's just getting worse. And then so one of my friends that I grew up with is a chiropractor, and she has like sort of similar practice to you as she tries to get to the root cause of issues. And I had asked her to look at my blood work, and I had seen her a couple of times, and we did a stool test and saw that there was just like all types of things going on in
dysbiosis.
my
Yeah,
gut. Yeah, gut dysbiosis. I think that came up as like a 10 out of 10 or something on the test. And so, and I had never even really knew, like, she was the first one to open up my eyes to just all that in general. And she opened my eyes to just avoiding like toxins and things like that. So that was when I like started replacing some of my products and things. And then I ended up coming off birth control because the more that I learned about it, the more I was like, I can't keep taking this every day because
totally.
even if it doesn't solve all of my problems, it's not helping them. So I ended up coming off of that. And I think like the weight moved a little bit after that, but there were still problems. I remember I had really bad brain fog and hair loss too for a time. And so she had helped me. We were on some supplements and we did like a food allergy test. So I was trying to like avoid some of those. But the main problem was just because of like state laws and things, she couldn't really run more lab work. So we couldn't dig deeper into issues, even though we knew they were probably there. So then that's right around the time that I found you.
Mm. Yeah, and I remember there was a bit like, do you remember when we met and kind of the frustration and how you actually felt? Because I always say I wish I had a video because a lot of the sessions I don't record with my
Yeah,
clients. Most of them I don't.
yeah,
And I wish I had a video of you when we first met versus even a video like 3 months later
yeah,
into working together versus like a video now. Do you remember that? Because that was another critical point
yeah,
where I think you are now frustrated because you were starting to do things more natural and there was maybe lack of guidance or lack
yeah.
of follow through or something else that made you think that something else was out there. Do you remember that?
Yeah, well, I definitely remember the first time, I think the first several times I talked to you, I was probably on the verge of tears the entire time.
We
Um,
cried. We cried
yeah,
a couple times.
there
We cry,
were
yeah.
tears. And like even that I got frustrated with just because I was like, I can't get my words out to tell her why I'm frustrated. Um, and yeah, I think it was just because I had already kind of moved away from like the traditional medicine route because,
Yep.
3 or 4 doctors, they weren't helping me. So I like was, yeah, opened up into the world of like the natural medicine and, avoiding products and things, but I didn't fully, I think I was still, um, like I don't think the dots were connected until I met you, and especially when we started doing things like the 10-week detox, and you just have everything laid out in such an amazing and easy way to follow, and we just slowly layer things on to make it easy. I think that's when it started to make sense, and it was like, okay, I think this will work for me. And I think it's also Yeah, I mean, because usually if you tell people, oh, I'm seeing a naturopathic doctor or just things like that, they're just like, oh, well, like, be careful. Like, you don't know what you're getting into. And it's like, yeah, but if,
Don't.
yeah,
But you
it's
should
true.
do an
But
interview
it's a,
process. Yeah.
but it's a good thing, at least with you. But I think it was like the all the things that I had gone through at that point, I was like, I don't really care because I am so desperate to try anything else. And also, I mean, I think one of the first things that you said to me was just like your feelings about all this are valid, and also what you're going through. Like, this is a real thing. You're not just like, there are probably things underlying. I think that's when you had said like weight loss resistance is a real thing, and like you had struggled with it yourself a little bit. So just having you tell me like this isn't all in your head and this is real and I can help you was like huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so glad well, because I remember, so fertility is not something that you're like, I'm looking to get pregnant right away.
Yep.
It's something that's on the forefront for you. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
in the next three,
Eventually.
five,
Yep.
however many years.
Yep.
But right now, I just want to figure this out. And I remember being like, okay, I don't know if I can help you because I'm in the fertility world. So it has to be specific problems. And then you're
Yeah.
like, weight loss resistance. And I'm like, fantastic. Those are the
You're like,
things that
yep.
I have all dealt with.
Yep.
Yeah. So you already kind of started talking about this, because what I'm like, really proud of you, and I'm always proud of my patients, is I see the change and the evolution. And so can you take us back
Yep.
to that first little evolution that you knew that this was going to be different? You mentioned the 10-week detox, but even like, what were those things that you're just like, this is going to be different, and what I'm doing is different?
Yeah, I think even like probably the first couple things we started, because I remember we started working together right before I went into like a busier time at work. So we were like, let's start slow with a couple things, then we'll do the detox after that. So I think, and I was already sort of used to taking supplements, so we like did that right away. And I noticed differences from that right away too. Like I think I remember just better energy and like digestion and things. And then I think switching the water right away was a huge thing that we did.
Mhm.
Um, and also just prioritizing sleep. Because I think right away, I feel like we saw a lot of changes in, if you go to sleep earlier and you're not on your phone the entire time before and all of that, you feel better when you wake up in the morning. Because I think there was a time too where I think I even said to you, like, I'm sleeping for say 8 hours, but then I wake up and I just feel tired. Like I can't
Yep.
it's just doesn't feel like I'm sleeping. So like right away, I feel like some of the things we changed helped that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
Mm.
we got into the 10-week detox. Now, you've done diets before. Why was this different?
This was different because, well, I think one thing I really liked about it, and also I think this is just your approach overall, is don't focus on the things that you can't have, but focus on the things that you can have. So
Or that you
like
should have?
that you should have, which you eventually realize are things that you want to have too. But even though it's like, yeah, avoid gluten, avoid processed foods, avoid sugar. But look, you can have all, I was gonna say you can have all these veggies. Not that that sounds appealing, but it's like you can have um all these other things on this list and try to make sure you're having, this much protein, this much whatever. And then there was also just little goals that you can click, like kind of check off during the day. Like, okay, I had my flax seeds, I had this. So I think that was different because I think the word detox, people always think you're just like starving yourself and you don't have energy and like you're barely getting by. But this detox was just different because you're still nourishing yourself. Like I don't remember being hungry or anything like that. And it was also fun to say like, okay, now I'm on the week of the liver or now I'm on the kidneys or whatever. So you can go through all the, I don't know, all the stages and then
Yep.
see how far you come to. And end up going a lot faster than I thought too.
Yep. Totally. I mean, I think from what I remember, because I know that was a while back and there's
Yeah.
been lots of things that you've done since then. We're going to talk about that in a second. But that was kind of the initial cleanup, if you will.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but what I remember is the switch that you made was like, I'm no longer trying to replace the bad food.
Yeah.
I just want to have different food.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. It was because you also opened a whole world to me of just like organic foods and the importance of protein and like which veggie should you have. And it was, even though I thought what I was doing before, you know, a balanced meal or whatever, like I think that's probably, I don't know, kind of what's taught in like diet world or
Sure.
you know, I was like, oh, I'm having like a whole grain, I'm having this, I'm having that, but it just, it wasn't enough. Like, and it just wasn't really the right balance. So I think you teaching me that and then having something new to like try and to strive for and say, okay, like I can do this. This isn't so bad. Um, yeah, I think that that helped a
Like
lot.
learning to enjoy food a little bit more, right? Trying out
Yeah.
different recipes. And it's not thinking that like I can never have cookies.
Yeah.
It's just that you're not having crappy cookies. You're
Yeah.
having, right? Like you're making your own that are good, and you have your little glass jars full
Yeah.
of things.
Yeah. And that, like, I remember you saying, like, oh, I still have, you know, I have a cookie like every night, or you and your husband make cookies together. And that was just different to hear too, because I was like, okay, that even though there might be some things I can't have now or shouldn't have now, it doesn't mean that I can't have them later on. And I think it also, it was fun to say, like, okay, I can, this food that I like from a restaurant, why don't I just get the ingredients at home and get them organic and know exactly where they came from and make them myself? And that just becomes fun, and then you feel better. Because also once you start eating, you know, I guess better things,
Better quality food. Yeah, that's your
yeah,
building blocks.
and know and you feel a lot better. And like I just remember even a couple weeks into the detox being like, I have so much energy. Like I just felt so different. So that, I mean, that's another reason why it's like you just have that much more reason to keep going.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now the gym was the next evolution, and I think that was a
Yeah.
really big one. Tell us about
Yeah.
the gym.
That was a fun one. Well, yeah, I think there's, I mean, from the start, I think you were like, you know, you need to get your step count up. Like, let's kind of work slow with that. So we are doing that. And we tried like a couple different workout apps, and I'd like do a couple things at home. But once I started to get just way more energy, and then I think once I think you were talking to me a lot about saunas and how great saunas are. And I had went to one like a couple times, but I didn't have a consistent one to go to. And so I started looking into gyms close to me, and there's one like 10 minutes away that's been there forever that I never considered joining, but they had a sauna. And so I joined it pretty much just for that. But then I fell in love with going there, like the whole idea, because I was like, well, if I'm here for the sauna, I might as well do a workout. And then we just started building on that. And I think that was when we tried the street parking app too. And
Yep.
I liked that one. And and that, because I mean, I used to work out a ton. Like I played sports in high school and I worked out in college. I mean, it was nothing super intentional like we've done, but it was always like part of my life. But then when you know, because of COVID and things shut down and you're just home all the time, and then like the weight gain and the struggles, like it just kind of got away from it. So joining that again, like I just fell in love with the whole process. And then you would tell me what to do, and I was like, oh, this feels good. I like this.
I could do that. Yeah.
Send you videos. Yeah.
I think the really big thing to outline here is that it was a process to find your groove that works for you. So instead of like, hey, there's a gym 30 minutes away that is unlikely to go to because it's like an hour each way in direction
Yep.
and travel, that's just not gonna last. And
Yep.
the same with like if you live in a small apartment and you don't have a lot of equipment, it's like how likely are you to stick to a routine
Yep.
where it's going to be consistent, you're going to get the most out of it, all that jazz. So I really love that evolution of you because it took us time to figure out
Yep.
what location and gym and how it worked for you, and then a routine. And then like the sauna just dragged you in, which is
Yep.
great. Um, but there was like a really big confidence piece too. I remember you sending me messages and being like, man, usually when the gym is busy, I would just
Yep.
leave.
Yeah.
And I
And this time I
didn't.
was like,
Yeah,
nope,
I'm
I'm
making up some
standing
room.
right here. Yeah, I do remember that day because that was actually, I think, even at my old gym, like before I even joined the nicer one. And I just hated going there because it was so crowded. There's like a bunch of annoying guys like hogging all the machines and all the weights. And I would just do cardio and leave because I was like, I don't want to deal with it. But I think there was one day that I just like grabbed whatever weights I needed and just stood right in the middle of the floor. And I was like, too bad. So yeah, that was definitely I think a big turning point. That was cool.
Yeah, that was like a new evolution for
Yeah.
sure. For like, hey, I'm gonna take up some room and that kind of confidence and all that jazz. Is there anything else that we missed in terms of like any other evolutions or any other big points that there was like the the 7-day liver detox, but is there anything else that you feel were like big points for you to mention
I
in your
mean,
growth?
I think even going on the gym line too was like the squats definitely because
Yep.
I don't know if we knew or maybe you knew where I was going to be after 12 weeks, but you're like, we're going to do this squat challenge and, just keep building the weight. And I think I remember the first time I sent you a video and I wasn't even on the squat rack and I just had and because I was intimidated by it. I was like, I don't know how to use that. I remember sending you a video and you're like, no, you're like, you need the squat rack. And I was like, all right.
Yep.
So, yeah, even just learning how to like use new things like that in the gym, I think really helped my confidence and just building up the weight on that was really cool.
Yeah. And like, what did you get to for 20 reps?
100.
100
So
pounds.
that was pretty
Yeah, that
cool.
was huge. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I loved watching that evolution in the videos because you send me the videos every time you do it. And I'm
Yep.
like, man, I can just see your posture going up and the legs and like, building strong and that confidence. So that
Yeah,
was
that was
really
super cool.
super cool to see and experience. So let's talk about some like where you are now. I'd love to, so people can kind of understand the progress that
Yep.
you have made. And then I also want to make sure we talk about some of the challenges,
Yep.
because one of the things that I really want to be transparent with people is helping them understand how long the process actually takes. And there's many times where we feel like we want to give up,
Yep.
right? And that's actually usually, and we just had one recently
Yep.
with you. So
This
it's
is last
good.
week.
Yeah, just last week we had a little, but tell people where you are now, what's going on.
Yeah. So I mean now so I've been working with you for like maybe like a year and a couple of months
Yeah.
and just to put a number on it because I feel like the proof is in the pudding because if someone questions natural medicine it's like well I'm down 30 pounds and I was nowhere close to that before I started working with you and so there's that, and then there's also we've made a lot of progress in my labs too. Like just recently, just some of those markers we saw made a huge jump, even just from I think it was maybe like
Three
May.
months ago. Yeah,
Yeah, just a
May.
couple
Oh yeah.
months ago. Yeah. So that's been really cool. And then I think just all of the habits that we've layered on in the last year or so are just a part of my life now. Like I'm just I'm getting steps in. Like that's it. No matter what. I mean, you might have a day or so here and there that's not perfect, but it's like that's the non-negotiable 8 hours of sleep, the non-negotiable vegetables, non-negotiable protein, um, working out a few times a week. Like that's just become a part of my life so seamlessly, which I think just adding all those in really slowly and making it um, I don't, I mean, I think at the time maybe it wasn't so easy to do, but just like if you start doing a little bit and a little bit and a little bit, then it becomes easier over time. So I've just a completely different person. And I've had multiple people tell me that my confidence has changed a lot over the year. And I mean, I feel it myself too. And so that's really cool because those are things that I wasn't necessarily seeking out or even maybe thought I needed or
Sure.
whatever, but it's just the after effects of all the work that we've done.
Totally. I think the confidence is a huge piece. And I've talked about that with weight loss. And I mean, I talk about that in the fertility space as well. Is like you have to become a different person. And with weight loss, it's like you're shedding layers, you're shedding and whatever it's thoughts, beliefs, like you've even done things like clean out your closet,
Yeah,
right?
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, just to shed some of the things that it was just like, this is no longer serving me. And the same with in your job. I don't remember specific, but there was a couple of times where it was just like, yeah, I'm not putting up with this person anymore.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like
And
those are
even, yeah, just like saying more what I think. And then even just around my busier times at work, like I was making myself a priority because it was like if I'm not eating well and I'm not getting 8 hours of sleep and going out for the walks a few times a day or whatever, it's like I can't focus on my work that well. And so that was a really big shift for me just the last year or so too, because I had never done that before. Like I was in a job a couple years ago where we just worked insane hours. And I remember going to sleep at like 3, 4 a.m. sometimes. And then you're back at the office at like 10 and you're eating crap because you're
You're
not even
exhausted.
yeah, you're exhausted. You're not even at home to use your own kitchen. So, I mean, I'm sure all of that also contributed to, my issues over time. But knowing what I was like back then dealing with deadlines and then knowing what I'm like now and able to handle that stress a lot better, that's really cool too.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, let's talk about, because obviously it hasn't been easy.
Yeah.
Just let's tell people how easy it was.
Just
You just
rainbows
did
and
it with
butterflies.
the detox, yeah, but rainbows and butterflies. What were the kind of the difficult parts, and how did you get through them? Like, give me like 3.
Oh boy. Um, I think there was the 7-day liver detox that we did where it was literally just
7 days
smoothies,
of smoothies, yep.
7 days of smoothies. It was interesting because I feel like I wasn't even really hungry. It was just hard because I just didn't want to eat a smoothie anymore.
Totally.
So I mean things like that I think are just mentally tough to get through because you just have to say, you see everyone else around you in the office eating whatever, or um you pass by a restaurant or something and it's like I'm eating this gross chocolate smoothie. But just eventually it's like the 7 days go by really fast and you feel a lot better and it's worth it. Um, Trying to think of some of the other. I mean, I don't even know how to describe what's happened recently. But I think I just hit, like I think we talked about, just kind of hit a breaking point because there was at least, I mean, there was a couple years of struggle before I even met you. And then like we got results really fast, which was awesome. And I was super happy about it. But then we kind of hit a
So,
roadblock. Yeah, a plateau. And it was like a couple weeks and then it kind of turned into like a month and it kind of turned into like 2 months. And we just kept saying, oh, we'll try this. And I think this will be the thing that works. And then maybe it didn't have a huge impact. And then we just keep trying. So I think just I think it's
you
just
felt
hard.
overwhelmed. Yeah, I'll
Yeah,
kind of,
yeah.
I know what
You
you
can fill in
felt.
the blanks. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's
I
just you start to realize that it takes a toll, and then it does kind of get to a point where it's like, well, how much more can I keep doing? But then I think, I mean, you were great about it, and you're just like, if you need a break from your supplements or whatever it is for like a couple of days, just take a couple of days. And those couple of days were really important because I just didn't really think about any of the stressors. I just had fun. It was just like, let me just take a breather. And then you were like, just come back. You'll come back stronger than ever. And that's kind of how I felt. Even this literally happened like 3 days ago. And
mm,
then even just this morning, I told you it was like all of a sudden the weight started to move again. Not that that's the only, I mean, now I think there's so many other things we're striving for, but just knowing that we definitely worked through something there emotionally and having you to
yep.
tell me like, maybe you're
That's
doing all
part
the
of the
physical,
process. That's normal.
yeah. And like maybe you're doing all the physical things, but maybe you didn't deal with this emotional thing or whatever. Like those are things that I don't think I would ever deal with on my own. Like I think there's been a couple of times where I've told you this is probably the point where I would have quit before. But now I know, like we've said, it's like, well, quit what? Like you're just gonna quit taking care of yourself, like just trying to be healthy. So that's been
You're gonna quit
on the
drinking
forefront
good
too.
water? You want
Yeah.
to start going to tap water again, or
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I appreciate, thank you for sharing that. I know that it's the reason that I think it's so important is because, like you said, there's so many points where you would say, this is where I would quit.
Yeah.
And in reality, this is when people quit, and you never know when you're just like, there's a difference between going backwards and there's a difference in climbing a hill. The
Yep.
way that they feel for your body will be very similar, like how mentally they will feel, but
Yep.
what's going on physically will be different. And I think that's the component of pushing. And we've talked about like David Goggins, like, hey, if you want to lose weight, guess what? David Goggins ate 600 calories and
Yep.
exercised 5 hours a day for 30 days, and he lost a bunch of weight. And it's like, we just don't want to do that. Like that worked for him and maybe that works for somebody else, but we don't want to do that. We want it to come from a perspective of like, how can I heal and balance my hormones? But also we're going to challenge the system a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. And that was the more working out. It was more counting the macros and then the supplements and all that. And so obviously it can get really overwhelming, but there's also a lesson in there when we break.
Yeah.
When we break, it's like, why did what, like, what's in there? And then as soon as you had the go ahead to take a break, I could see it in you. You were like, okay, thank God I don't have to do. But all you needed was a couple days. It's not like you needed a month. Most people think they need like a lot of time. And it's just like, no, you just need a couple days to like mentally say, hey, I don't want to think about anything. I don't want to worry about taking my supplements. I don't want to worry about putting on my castor oil pack, whatever, you know, but maybe that's 5 days. Maybe that's 2 days. After that, you're like, no, I want to, like, I'm ready to do stuff again. Because otherwise, what am I doing?
Yeah, I think you had even originally we were like, okay, you know, take a week, and then you're like, maybe just do like a couple of days, and really,
we were trying to plan it around Christmas.
Yes, that's true. But at first, when you said that, I was like, okay, I like the plan of having another break around Christmas. Then I was like, oh, like what if I want the 5 days now? But really, probably after 2, I mean, I took the extra third day, but like after that, I was like, okay, I'm ready to go back into it. I was like, I can at least go to the gym and attempt a workout. I mean, if it's not the best workout I've ever done, it's fine. But it's like I've never ever regretted doing a workout. So it was like, just pick yourself up by your bootstraps and we'll just go. And I think you've also taught me how to be super in tune with my cycle too. Like now I know if I'm, you know, really in a pissy mood one day, or I mean, I think that's what most women relate with, but there's even times when it's like, okay, I'm really feeling really productive today, or feeling this today. Like I've started to notice like when I feel like that and why. And so that's, I feel like, powerful too, because you can just kind of let yourself feel it and not be like, why is this happening?
Yep. And like, also, what day of cycle is it in your workout, and how is that going to go? Are you going to be able to lift 100 pounds today? Or maybe that's a day where we just do 50 pounds and we just come in and move and have that grace with ourselves, but enjoying more the journey. And that's something, again, we're working on, is enjoying the journey instead of feeling like there's a destination, but guess what? That flag is going to move once you get there.
Yeah, that was the other thing I think we had talked about last week when I was struggling. Like I had seen someone's post that just said, of course, it's easy to love yourself and be happy when you're losing weight and you're seeing results and you like feel amazing and blah, blah, blah. But the hard part really is just loving yourself when that's not the case. And maybe you're stuck, or maybe you gained weight, or you're, you know, like trying to build muscle, or whatever it is, like you're not getting the result that you want. So I think I said to you, I think I need to, like, I've been trying so hard to get to this, I don't know, image of me that I have in my head, but I'm forgetting to be happy with where I am now, because like the me a year ago would have killed to be where I am right now. So it was just like, okay,
100%.
let's just take a second and know that you can still work on your goals. But like you're good. You're where you need to be now. So that was a big thing last week too.
I love that you said that. It's like a person from me a year ago would have killed to be here. And sometimes that's all we want. Like I have people like that. Once my digestion is fixed, I'm going to be better. And then they start their supplement protocol, and within 2 weeks, their digestion improves. And they're like, yeah, okay, I have new goals.
It's like, what else can we do?
Yeah, that's right. So, you know, sometimes we attach ourselves to what it means. So yeah, and something that you said. So to me, what I look for is for traits. Because I know if that trait is being developed, then it's just a matter of time. And it's true for weight loss. It's true for fertility. I think it's true for anything in terms of success in business, life, relationships. And the trait that I like, that confidence has been so big in you. Even something that you said to me before we jumped on the podcast was like, I would never jump on a podcast.
I would be shocked if you told me. Even a year ago, but honestly, even like when I was younger, like I told you, I would like shake just like before like a 1 minute presentation. So just to be able to do this now is cool.
Yeah. And that's the same trait of like, no, I'm going to stay at the gym and I'm going to make some space, instead of like, oh, I'm uncomfortable and people are watching. And it's like, nobody's watching. They're watching themselves.
I was going to say, they're looking at themselves in the mirror and they could care less what I'm doing. So
But that is a shift in perspective as well, and having
Yeah,
enough confidence to say that, like, I don't care, even if they are watching, because there's no point.
yeah,
And then you've been going with your brother at the gym too, and that's
yeah.
been a nice little family.
Yeah, I'll give him a shout out. Although there was the funny, just like a funny story, which I think I had told you, but when we went, we, I loaded one side of the bar and he loaded the other, and I had told him how much to put on, but I guess he didn't hear me, so he put on a different amount. I put on my amount. I think we did like one or two sets, and then I see him start pulling the plates off, and I'm like, why are you holding those plates? I was like, I had these. And we realized that we had two different weights on either side, and then we're just in the middle of the gym, like, you calculated wrong and you put the wrong number on. So
Did you
that
not
was
notice it
funny.
when you were lifting?
I did a little bit. It was like maybe like a 5 pound difference or
Hmm.
something, so it wasn't crazy. But I do remember thinking, that's like a little uneven, but
Maybe
we
it's
wouldn't
just my
have done that.
spine
Yeah.
today.
Yeah, but that was really fun to go with him, and he was glad, I think, to just have me pull him, because I was like, where I don't know, like, wherever gym you want to go to, we're going, and just showed up and did it, and that was cool to do together. And then I've even just making like different meals with my family and my boyfriend, like showing them different things that I've learned from you about which ingredients to look for or what to avoid, clean water. Like, I'll also give a shout out to my dad, who has from the start, I've told you this numerous times, from the start, ever since we got my I guess we never even talked about the toxins test. Ever since we got that, he was like, I'm on board. I'm doing the clean water. I'm doing the organic food. Like, because whatever you have in your system, I probably have in my system. Everyone else probably has in their system. So I also think, like, seeing those in black and white, I think there was even one thing that came up in my toxin report that was, it was like, oh, this is only found in gunpowder or water. And I'm like, well, I'm not fighting in a war, so obviously it came from my water. And like,
Yeah.
that just kind of makes everything real for you. And it's like, okay, this is why I'm making these changes.
Yeah. Yeah, I was really happy to hear, like, one of the things I talk about is setting your environment up for success. So like now you and your boyfriend are not living together yet, but like, and you're not living at home, but that's going to be different, if
Yep.
you don't have that support, it's going to be really hard for you to change and grow. And that's why, like, I'll work with couples in fertility instead of just the females, obviously never just the males, but
Yeah.
it's like, hey, you can't do this alone. You have to do
Yep.
this together. And then it has this ripple effect on your family and how they feel and all that jazz. Cause it just, like, it makes sense, especially when you use data
Yeah.
to quote unquote prove it.
Yeah. And I mean, even if, everyone close to me doesn't exactly do every single thing that I
Of
do,
course not. Yeah.
it's just knowing that they're like, this was a couple of weeks ago. I remember I messaged you this, knowing that they've picked up on my habits, and they accept it. They're open to it. They will, like, accommodate me, because we even went out to dinner. It was my boyfriend and my parents, and like, before I could even say anything about, we need to get protein or whatever, they were just like, we know, like, we have to get extra protein, we have to get extra veggies, like, we'll do it. So that was funny too, because I was like,
Makes me
okay,
so proud. It
yeah,
makes me so proud because that's what, like, my parents do, right? And
yeah,
I think that when people feel bad around that, it's because, like, you're not secure in your decisions and you
yep,
feel bad about it's like whether it's a people pleasing thing, whether it's afraid of being judged or whatever. Because when I go out now, if somebody asks me for a drink, if I want to have a drink, I'll say yes. But if not, it's like I don't even think twice about it. It's just
yep,
like, no, I don't want that. I want this.
yep.
Whereas there's people who literally have a conflict inside and be like, oh my God, what are they going to think about me if I
Yep.
order veggies and protein and
They'll
it's like,
probably just be jealous, because they probably know they should be doing that, but they're not, and then you're going to be the one that feels better after, and they won't.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I think it's just being okay with whatever it's like, it's just feeling like you have a choice and it's, I want to do these things as
yeah,
opposed to I have to do these things.
yeah. And I think I broke a lot of old habits just around eating in general with you, because we've done a lot of like fasting protocols, and we started off kind of slow just with like intermittent fasting, and then just like longer ones. But even for a while, before we did that, we just did, okay, we'll have, just 3 meals a day. And I think one thing, and so like when you first hear that, you're like, oh my God, like I can't have my, my mid-afternoon snack or like my evening snack. Because for so long, I think like for so long I had that. And I think a lot of people rely on that. I'm sure right after they finish dinner, they're like, oh, let me go have my snack that I've been looking forward to. But I think one of the things you had said was, if you still want your pretzels, your cookie, like your scoop of ice cream, whatever, you were like, fine, have it, but just have it right after your dinner so that you're not raising your blood sugar again. And, but like, by the time I finished my dinner, I was full, so I didn't even want that anymore. So a lot of those things changed too. And then suddenly, you're about to go to bed and you're like, oh, I haven't even thought about food since dinner. So those were some cool things that we
That's
did
called
to
like
it.
regulated hormones. That's what
Yeah,
that is.
that's called being normal.
Yeah. But that's the norm is so different now, right?
Yeah,
People, I mean, when I sit down on initial consults, I just had an initial consult. I'm like, what are you eating? When?
yeah,
Like, oh, you're having a French vanilla and then you're having an apple. And but then in their mind, they're like, I'm fasting all day and then I just have one meal a day. And it's like, no, you're snacking on a lot of stuff.
yeah,
You just don't realize it. And snacks for the most part are going to be imbalanced, right? And
yeah.
it's like, when would you ever just serve yourself a plate of potatoes for dinner? You would never do that. That's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah,
But do we do that for snacks all the time?
yeah,
Like, let me just have some chips or let me just have, right? And it's
yeah,
like,
yeah. And
so,
then when I started adding protein, like way more protein, I realized that how much more full I was too. And I even like recently I told my dad to like try an experiment. I was like, one day have 20 grams of protein with your meal and then or even like 10, something really low, and then see how long it takes for you to feel hungry again. And then the next day have like 30 or 40 and see how long. Because it usually you stay full for a lot longer, but people don't realize that because I think you're like initially full quicker with carbs, but then you're hungry like an hour or two later. So like paying attention to those little things too has helped because it's like I know I'll feel better if I have this.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. It's what I'd love to close off with is just somebody listening there in the same situation that you were a year ago. What are some, like, what would you tell that person?
I would say I feel like you know yourself better than anybody else knows you. So if someone's telling you, oh, you probably just you're still eating too much or like you're not working out enough or whatever, but in your mind that something is off, keep trying to find someone that will help you because that person is out there, and just invest in yourself and trust yourself because like we even talked about how important it is to invest in yourself and you know make room for paying for things that will make you healthy in the long term and make you feel good because if you're not doing that, like what are you really what are you saving your money for? Because you're not even going to be well enough to to spend it. So yeah, I'd say just trust yourself, invest in yourself, and just keep going because eventually you'll find something that works, even though it usually takes some time.
Yeah, any advice that you could give someone to like shortcut some of that?
See you.
Yes.
Go to you right away.
Any, yeah.
Um,
But like
I
in a search process, because that's something that I do talk. I think it's important for people because obviously I'm not going to see everybody.
yeah,
I see like I have like 30 people that I can
yeah.
because I message you guys more frequently than I message my family. And that's like a gotta because I'll set more boundaries with my phone, but I'm like, okay, here we go.
Yeah,
Like so I realize that I can't see everybody but I'm really passionate about people not giving up on themselves.
yeah,
And also that like natural medicine works because all natural medicine is you learning and understanding how your body works.
yeah,
So then you can support it with nutrition, supplementation, environment, all that jazz. And so it makes me really sad when people give up on themselves. Like I've seen my family members, everybody give up. And it's an important message. So that's what it's like. What are some things in the journey that you think would help shortcut that. How did you know that I was the right person to help you? Because I'm not going to be the right person to help everybody, but
Yeah.
how did you know?
I mean, I wish that I did sort of stand up for myself more in some of those doctor appointments initially, but I mean, I didn't know the full extent of my issues at that point, so I didn't even know how hard to push. But so, I mean, that's one thing, like if you don't have access maybe to like a natural path, maybe just like keep fighting your doctor, or keep looking until you find one that will work with you, because I think there are people out there that will. But
Yep.
I think really just the biggest thing, I think I said it before too, when we first started talking and you immediately were like, yes, like this is like these are real problems that you're facing and I understand, and like that right away, I think I just took a deep breath and was like, okay, knows what she knows what I'm saying and
You
she
feel
can,
validated. So if
yeah,
you don't feel
exactly.
validated, that person isn't going to help you.
I don't think they're probably not the right one, because they might never really understand how you're feeling.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I mean, it's hard because I feel like just a lot of the traditional doctors now, like they just don't really want to deal with it. And then even if you tried to ask them to refer you to someone else, I'm sure they wouldn't really have an answer for that. Um, but I mean, now with social media and everything, like sounds kind of wild that I found you through Instagram. But I mean, props to you for putting everything out there so people can find you. But I'm sure there's plenty of others like that. So maybe just try to do research that way and see what you can, yeah,
Yep,
see what you can do.
totally.
Yep.
Yeah, we're as alternative providers that like in my next lifetime, whenever that is, whether it's
Yep.
in 10 years, and I do want to really help practitioners because I know some of the best practitioners in the world, and like they don't have a good website. And you're
Yeah.
just like, how nobody's gonna find
Yeah.
you, like,
Yeah.
okay, come on, you could be helping. And so I know that that's because running a business and being a good practitioner and like marketing and all that, that's a whole different. But I think that's really valuable for people to hear. And it's true for wherever you are in your health journey, is if you don't feel validated, there is healing in that. And the fact that you said, like, I can take a deep breath, it's just like,
Yep.
yeah, because you finally feel like someone is listening to you
Yep.
instead of, we don't need to run hormones. Why,
Yeah.
why would we need to run those? I don't think that's a problem for you.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we just see if it's a problem? and
Yeah, because you won't
and
know.
it was, we found it. We were like,
Yep.
sure it is. Look at this. Progesterone is low, test,
Yep.
right? Like you could just see why don't we just see?
Yep. Yeah. And
Uh,
I would also say, I mean, to the extent where people can like don't let something not being covered by insurance stop you. I mean, I know not everyone has the financial resources and everything, and thankfully I've been lucky enough to be able to like use my own funds to, run all
You've
those
worked
labs
hard
and
for
all of
that.
that.
You've worked hard for
Yeah.
that. Yes.
And it's definitely something I think that people stop at because they're like, well, like why, that's so much money to spend and blah blah blah. But I mean, in the end, it's worth it. I mean, and like you said, in an alternate world, all of that would be covered by insurance, but maybe someday.
Yep.
But
For
just don't
sure.
let that stop you.
And I think there's different levels of it too, right? Like there is unfortunately, like most people have to go through multiple doctors before they find me because
Yep.
they won't really understand why I do what I do and why I do all the lab work and why my approach is so, I would say, aggressive in terms of supplements and protocols and the things that I involve, because it's like I've done the other stuff and I know what
Yep.
works. And so it's like, I just want to do that. And
Yep.
it's obviously not for everyone, but sometimes it's just the general advice that will be helpful. Like, hey, why don't you just start with having 3 meals a day,
Yep.
right? And cut out your snacks. Why don't you just start having some more protein? And then for some people, that's enough.
Yep.
And it's like,
Yep.
that's great. And if it is, that's great. Then you can, but if it's not, then, if it's important to you, then we want to make that happen, because otherwise it's just like life goes by and you're like, okay, is
Yep.
this it?
Yeah. And I think people get kind of turned off by natural medicine. Just, I don't know why, just maybe there's been people over the years
Totally. There's
that
a lot of
maybe
woo-hoo and
a lot
whatever.
of
Yeah.
weirdos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of
But
weirdos.
when you really get into it, like just everything that you've had me do, there's an explanation for it and it makes sense. And it's like,
It
yeah,
has to make
why?
sense.
Yeah. So that I think also helped to know that you were right too, because just the way that you explained everything and Just and yeah, it just made sense. It was like, well, yeah, why would I drink this water that has all of this crap in it? And why would I have this food that has ingredients that I can't even read or like, yeah. So when you start to see it all through that lens, it's like, why would I do it any differently, really? There's no reason to be on a drug. I mean, imagine I just went with that first doctor's advice and went on the drug right away, and I have no idea where I would be right now. So
Totally.
thankfully I didn't do that.
And here's the thing, most people start the drug and they don't feel any better. And so
Yeah,
their lab work goes down, their hemoglobin A1C, fasted insulin, fasted blood glucose. Sure, that has gone down, but now you have diarrhea and bloating and you're still the same weight.
yeah,
And so it's like, well, that doesn't make any sense, you
yeah,
know? So if we're just chasing one number versus looking at the whole picture, then that's different. Of, hey, we're not just focusing on blood sugar, we're trying to understand why that blood sugar is high in the first place, and like, why are the liver enzymes doing what they're doing, or the cholesterol, or whatever, right? Whatever
yeah,
the thing is. So then we can unravel it, because like I said, to me, it's just like there's a reason for why the body's doing what it's doing.
yeah.
And you know, and it's also not easy. This is why I appreciate you coming on and saying, because it's not like you're talking about like the 10-week detox, but it was 10 weeks
Yeah.
of you, like running around and doing this and that. But because you saw progress, it was easy for you to keep going.
Yeah.
Right. It wasn't because
Yeah.
you didn't see progress. It's like, I think within the first month, you lost like 10 pounds. It
I
was
yeah,
insane.
yeah, I think it was before we even done with the detox, it was 10 pounds. So it was right away, it's like, okay, she knows what she's doing.
Yeah. There's some things that
Yeah.
are happening. So
Yeah.
yeah. And that's good. And I always put myself in my patient's shoes, because if I was you and I was putting in all that energy and it wasn't happening, I would be so mad,
Yeah.
And so now I'm like, okay, what are we missing?
Yeah.
And I
And
do that a lot quicker, because it's just like, it's boring. Otherwise it's boring. Maybe I have slight ADHD, but that's what I think.
yeah, and I remember like I didn't even know how badly I felt until I started to feel better. Like I think I talked to you about that too. It was like, oh wait, now I have like pent up energy. Like of course I want to go to the gym because I actually have energy to expend at the gym.
Yeah.
And
Versus like making yourself go to the gym.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Cool. Any parting words for listeners, anyone who is on the fence about natural medicine or feeling really stuck in their journey?
I think because even like we've alluded to the fact that like still not really
Mhm.
where I want to be 100%. So it's like just don't I feel like it's easy to get caught up in like seeing like, oh, this person is already at this point and like they already made this progress. And I know a lot of your um patients and people who listen to this probably are like their end goal is probably pregnancy. So it's like, oh, look, that person got pregnant so easy. But like everyone's on their own journey and it's gonna take a long time and there's gonna be times when you want to quit. But I think that's what I've now learned is like that's the time that you just keep going because that's when you'll start to see progress.
Yep.
So yeah.
That's, and we'll do part two podcast when you're done. And that's
Yeah.
sometimes me as my practitioner as well. I'm like, well, no, we'll just wait until it's done. But in
Yeah.
reality, like, it's good for people to hear the process, because that's the thing that doesn't get shown a lot. It's
Yep.
easy, like you said, to be celebrating your success when you're there. It's really hard to celebrate milestones that maybe you don't associate yet with
Yeah.
with the progress. But it is important, because like I said, what I look for is traits. When I see that traits change, then it's like, you're a new person. You're a new person. That's it. You can't go back the other way, because you just don't, like,
No.
you can't. You have a new coat on, your new layer of skin, if you will.
Yep.
And like, that's it. You can't, or you've shed the old one.
Yeah. And I even said to you last week when I was like going through struggles, I was like, you sure you still want me to come on? But it's like, yeah, I think the more
Mhm.
I thought about it, it's like, yeah, it is important to show that like everything doesn't get wrapped up in a pretty bow
Yep.
right away. It's like there's a whole
And
journey
30
to it.
pounds in a year is really great.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm pretty
Without
excited about
starving yourself or doing insane workouts. So, it's
it.
like, I think it's a really great progress, and I'm excited to see what we've just recalibrated, so we'll see
Yep.
what happens in the next little bit.
Me too. I'm excited.
Yep. Thanks you guys so much for listening. Let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to reach out on Instagram. I'm always happy to connect. Otherwise, we'll see you guys next week.